Welcome!
What is going on, guys? Chris the Marvel Buff Nerd here with my latest review. Please remember to hit the like, subscribe, notification bell here on YouTube if you like my content, like the channel, and follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Snapchat, and Patreon, all at Marvel Buff Nerd, one name. I like to keep it simple. I appreciate it. This is going to be some video game talk, actually. Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village, whatever you want to say it, and if you prefer Roman numerals or not, dropped on May 7th, so a week ago from Friday. And I took the last 7-8 days playing it. Took me 11 hours and 25 minutes to play through it, and I gotta say this game was amazing. I loved it from the get-go, from right where it picked up. I loved it all the way through the end, and it ended up with a little bit more heart and emotion at the end than I expected from a Resident Evil game. But I mean, I get attached to protagonists easily, so, you know, I'm also probably pretty biased, but this is really good, and I actually was able to come at this from a unique perspective because I played Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, which is the first game in the Ethan Winters, our protagonist for this game series, or for this game, the saga section here. It's our protagonist for this, and he starts out in RE7, so I was able to start out with his story all in this recent gap with the new game dropping and play it all back to back, which was really cool because a lot of people played RE7 4 years ago when it came out. I never did for some weird reason, even though I've been a lifelong fan of Resident Evil. To be honest with you, the game always looked a little too scary, and it was probably the scariest video game I have ever played. But anyway, not a review for that one. But it was really cool to be able to play and see Ethan's whole arc, because in RE7 he's not as much of a character and he doesn't have as much of a personality, and in this game he has a lot more of a personality. A lot of his personality is kind of dad jokes and whatnot, but I like that, and he plays a perfect everyman because that's what Ethan Winters is. He's supposed to be just your avatar into this world as the everyman that's having to get through this scenario somehow. And they do a great job of that, showing it through his eyes and feeling his emotion and his heart and the pain and everything he goes through. And from the time this starts off, right off the bat, with Mia and Rose in the house, and this is going to be spoilers, by the way, all the way through, you know, when we see Chris and his tactical team come in and shoot Mia, who, you know, we later find out is actually Mother Miranda disguised as Mia, who is the main, huge, overarching big bad of this game. You know, so from the get-go, when that scene kicks off, you know, you're like, holy shit, what's going on? When Chris Redfield comes in, and it appears that he kills Mia just in cold blood out of nowhere. And then you get thrown into the horror kind of pretty quick into this, because quickly within the next 10-15 minutes, you know, within a few cutscenes, you find yourself in the village. And it's this real gothic, dark village with a lot of weird villagers. This game is very RE4, you know, reminiscent, which I love that because RE4 is, it's hard to say what my favorite Resident Evil game is, but RE4 is one that I've spent a lot of time with on multiple ports, because that game's been ported on almost every console known to man. This game is very reminiscent of that, with the village setting, with the villagers gone mad, and just you know, the wooden cabins, and just everything kind of feels old and medieval and gothic. And so the marketing of this game really, like, it undersold the game, to be honest with you, because the marketing of this game would lead you to believe that the whole Lady Dimitrescu, the big, tall, hot vampire lady, is the main big bad of this game. But she's actually only the first small cog in the wheel of what this entire game actually is. Like, once you get past her section, which is the first big bad section you get into, that you have to fight a few bosses and whatnot, once you get through her section, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours into the story, the game really opens up, and you get to go back into the village where you started, and you get to explore it even more, and more things happen. It's like devolving as the game goes on, because you go back to the village multiple times throughout the story as the map opens up and you get to explore more and more, and you find more and more things. This game really pays dividends to you just searching the map for random things. You're going to find a lot of unlockables. You're going to find a lot of extra weapons and ammo and supplies. It's just really cool how you get to go back and do the classic, Resident Evil backtracking, through the castle section, the village section, the Heisenberg factory, a little bit, not a ton of backtracking through the water and the mine, but a little bit, and a decent amount of backtracking and running around with the dollhouse section. This game, that's another thing, with the distinct sections of this game, each has its own very distinct gameplay and flavor. Like, you start out with the kind of the prologue, I guess, in the village when you're getting things going, and then you play the Castle de Maîtresse section, which is very reminiscent of like RE1 and 2, with the mansion in RE1 and the police station in RE2, where you're having to backtrack and find different keys and unlock puzzles and doors and find secret passageways. And the whole time you're running around, you're also getting chased by Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters that you have to take out throughout the gameplay section there. Then after that section, you move on to a dollhouse section where it's actually non-combative because you actually lose all your weapons. So it's very much relies on puzzles, psychological terror, and just pure horror. It just really gets into your mind and makes your skin crawl. And there's a section in there with a huge monster baby abomination that chases you, and it's just it gets to you. It's a scary section of the game. There will be some this game has some good jump scares for sure. After that, you move into an aquatic section with Moreau, the water fish abomination character, and it's fun. It was probably, honestly, out of all the sections of the game, it was probably my least favorite. Not that it wasn't fun, but it was just, honestly, water sections in Resident Evil games have never been my favorite. From RE4, I never... The water sections in RE4 were always my least favorite sections to play through as well. So the Moreau chapter of this game was just kind of on the bottom of my list, but it's still a good time, of course. The game is just, it's fun no matter what. But then after the Moreau section, you go through like a stronghold where you have to fight through a bunch of the werewolves and whatnot, and you have to fight the big, like 10-foot tall werewolf dude with the big sledgehammer. And then you end up getting into Heisenberg's factory, and he's the Magneto character, the metal manipulator, where he can just make metal and things fly and build creations and whatnot. He's also kind of a mad scientist, because you're going to encounter throughout this gameplay section a bunch of weird half-dead corpses with metal parts and drills and face shields and all kinds of abominations made into them, because he's this weird Frankenstein's army mad scientist kind of thing. So you also get throughout this game a bunch of very different enemy types with the different gameplay sections that you go through, whether it be the vampire kind of enemies, and there's like some scythe kind of corpses that come to life in the castle, and then the random werewolves throughout the village, and the El Gigantes that are real tall, that are just like RE4 pretty much, that you have to take out a couple times, and then all the half mechanical abominations throughout Heisenberg's section. There's a plethora of different beasts and baddies that you have to contend with. And then, you end up with, you fight Mother Miranda and at the very end, because she's the overall big bad. And this game also does a great job with fan service, if you've been a fan of the series for a long time, because you get to play as Chris Redfield out of nowhere. I had no idea. You get to play as Chris Redfield for 15 minutes or so towards the end of the game. And it was just a badass section, because he's a mainstay, legendary character that's been here from the beginning. He's still alive, and he suits up, he sheds the big overcoat jacket, he's still jacked and juicy, he's got some nice arms on him that aren't comically huge, he's just good and in shape. I love that in a protagonist. He's got badass weaponry, a badass tactical outfit, and he just wrecks shop in his gameplay section. It's just a really good time. And Ethan has a great character arc where you learn a couple things about him and how Rose plays into all of this, and what really happened with Ethan and who he really is from RE7, and just you learn a lot of things at the end, and then it gets kind of sad for a little bit with like kind of a memoriam and then a time jump with Rose, and just a lot of things I wasn't expecting to feel from a Resident Evil game that I felt in this game. And then most important of all, this game brings back the Merchant, which he was one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character in this game. The Duke. He is awesome. He pops up in the most random places, just like the Merchant from RE4. He even has a great fan service line where he says, "What are you buying?" Just something an old friend of mine used to say. Just like the Merchant in RE4, I had a smile on my face from ear to ear when that happened. He's fun, he's jolly, he makes you food and recipes that increase your stats for the game. He lets you upgrade your weapons and buy more badass things and upgrade your ammo and craft recipes and whatnot. You can sell him goods and things that you get for beating enemies and searching, all the property and whatnot and looting things. He's just an awesome addition to this, and he actually plays into the story too. That's what's really cool, is like towards the end of things, he helps you out a little bit, and he's an ambiguously good dude, and so he's just a really cool, enjoyable presence throughout the entire game. So the Merchant coming back was an awesome time. So I think that's the last big thing to harp on for this game. So overall, Resident Evil Village RE8, it was a good time. Oh, and there was a funny joke during the Heisenberg section where he says, he's talking about Chris Redfield, and he says, "I'm gonna murder that boulder punching asshole." And I laughed a good bit about that because of the RE5 joke about Chris punching boulders to get him out of the way when his arms were just comically huge. So this game did a great job with balancing the horror and the action, because I'm really a huge horror or action fan growing up with games, but I enjoy the horror as well because I love Resident Evil. So this game balanced it pretty much 50-50, with a lot of the action coming in towards the second and third part of the the game, and with Chris Redfield coming back. And being it's always cool to see one of your legendary characters making an appearance. And in the marketing, you thought he was going to be a bad guy. He actually kind of has the best plan, and turns out to have you feel his emotion and his compassion for the Winters family at the end of this game. Regardless of the outcome for all of them. And it's a good blend of fun, of sad, of scary, some good jump scares, a lot of action. You get the attaché case back, you get the Merchant back, and I can't wait to enjoy this for years to come. And I cannot wait for the next game in a few years or whenever we get it, to finish out the Winters family trilogy and see where it goes from here, and maybe get a little bit more with Chris Redfield, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So guys, let me know in the comment section down below, are you a Resident Evil fan? Is this the first Resident Evil game that you've played, or are you like me, you're a lifelong fan and you've played mostly all the main entries, or I believe I played all the main story entries actually, and mostly all the spin-offs as well. I geek out on this a lot. I even guilty pleasure on the movies. I know, kill me. But yeah, guys, like the video, let me know in the comment section what you thought, and
Thank you.